As busy realtors in the Duluth-Superior area, we are constantly out and about in the community and around town. This show highlights some of our favorite spots in the area and some of our partners in the real estate industry and the role they play in your next real estate transaction. We are Team Dusick with Edina Realty, and this is Everything Twin Ports. Hey everybody, I'm Chad Watsack.
And I'm Madeline Dusick.
And we're with Team Dusick and Edina Realty. And on today's episode of Everything Twin Ports, we're going to be interviewing a mortgage lender. Our mortgage lender today is Corey Verhel with Frandsen Bank Trust. Corey, welcome today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It is always nice to sit down and talk business with passionate people in the industry.
So we're going to jump right into some questions that a lot of buyers have been asking us. And the first question we have is just kind of give us an overview as kind of what you're expecting for the market insights coming into 2020 and what everyone should be looking at as far as interest rates and kind of what the market might be.
Yeah, we're expecting, as a mortgage lender from the mortgage side, we're expecting it to be another active buying season. We've already seen a lot on the refinance side because rates have continued to stay low. That's only going to help people jumping into whether they're buying their first house, a second home, an investment property. Low interest rates, as they're really intended to be, sometimes artificially, they're helping kind of open up the market for a lot of people. We expect it to be extremely active once again.
We get a lot of questions too. A lot of people are asking, what's a good time to start meeting with a mortgage lender? And I guess what would be an answer that you would give to a question like that?
Well, if it turned into 2020 and the buying season really in our area only a couple months away, I would say now. You really want to get out 3 to 6 months ahead of time, no matter what you're looking at. Even if you're going to buy looking to buy towards the end of the summer, fall, anything like that, it's always a good idea to see exactly where you're at. Just make sure everything's lined up for you. A pre-approval is good for 4 months, 120 days, so you've got time to kind of search things out, but you don't want to be chasing that a little bit. So it's always good to sit down right away, figure out exactly where you're at financially, and work through any issues that you may have.
Sure.
Awesome. Another question that we get a lot is what's a down payment and what are the different down payments that go with different loans?
Yeah, great question, because I think there is some confusion, or there's some people don't understand exactly what comes in with the down payment, what you qualify for, what's required. First-time homebuyers, you can get in for as little as 3% down, and there's a lot of different loan options in that sense now. So that's your entry-level conventional loan. And conventional loans always a little bit more forgiving, open up the buying market with different houses. Government loans, there's a couple different ways to put no down payment down, right? If you're a VA eligible borrower, so you're a veteran, you can qualify with no down payment and no mortgage insurance. So that's always the first way we go if they're a veteran and eligible there. USDA in certain markets outside of the Duluth, Superior, Hermantown, Proctor markets, that's a great option. First-time home buyers, we can actually get them in for very little money out of pocket and then get reimbursed for some of the money they put in up front. Beyond that, you've got FHA, which is 3.5% down. That's a very common traditional loan. These days, because there is the 3% down conventional loan, FHA kind of goes into the market of some credit challenge borrowers and some lower credit scores and things like that. So a lot of different ways to get into a house. A lot of people don't. The misconception is that they need 20% down. They have to have this large down payment to buy a house. That's not true. There's a lot of ways to get creative with down payment. And put a loan plan together with little down and get some people who are on the edge of getting into a house, but know that that's the better investment. We can get them in pretty easily with a low down payment.
Well, that's good to know. A lot of people are renting, and they're every month they're paying that lease payment, and to convert that into what is a mortgage. In that regard, that's important to know. There's a lot of options if they don't have a lot of cash. Talk to someone like you that would actually have maybe potential options out there to help them. That's great. Another question we usually, not usually, but we get from time to time actually is, what's a good credit score for, good rate? What's the lowest credit score I could do? And I usually say, you got to go talk to a lender. I'm not that guy to do that. So I guess to answer a question of credit scores, what's the lowest you could work with?
Yeah, and that's also a good question. Another one of the misconceptions out there is you need to have a perfect credit score to buy a house. You don't. The mortgage world is not expecting you to be perfect. It always can help the higher credit score you have and put you in a better position interest rate wise and things like that. But we can work with credit scores as low as 580.
Wow.
And yeah, so there's situations where people are working really hard to rebuild credit. They've had some different life situations that have happened. It's very common, and we can help work with that as low as a 580, which it doesn't, believe it or not, it doesn't mean that you have terrible credit. It doesn't show up on your credit score, but we can work with those situations. So there's different loan programs that will qualify at 580, and then working up into the 600s, and again, your interest rate's going to be a little bit better. You have more down payment options the higher your credit score is.
Great. Yeah. Some more questions that we usually, get people asking us. We try to flesh this out through the course of meeting with the client from the first time, but on your side of it, what are some do's and don'ts that you kind of want to put out there for people when they're getting pre-qualified to when, okay, now I'm pre-qualified, pre-approved, and I'm waiting to close on my mortgage. Maybe what's a do and a don't, in that scenario. I think I'm leaning out towards here.
Yeah, and and that's part of sitting down with the mortgage lender, because we get to be able to go over those things. The simple do's and don'ts are, don't open up any new debts, don't change jobs, don't, do some of those things that are quick changes that all of a sudden change your entire situation. Those are, pretty simple things and seem self-explanatory, but when you're going through the process, they're not, it kind of seems like you still have those abilities. That just creates confusion. It doesn't mean that they're deal killers, but those are the things that we say, do and don't. We're not saying don't spend money and things like that, but just don't take out any other debt while you're spending money, and don't get ahead of yourselves and buying furniture and,
Sure.
and don't go buy a new car. And again, changing jobs can create some difficulty.
Tell us a little bit about Corey. I've known you for a while, and it's been great working with you. But what's Corey? What's Corey about, and kind of how did you get into lending, I guess?
Yeah, out of college, you don't go to college and take a class for mortgage lending. That's just it's not how you get into it. And so I came out of college just kind of with a management and marketing degree, and not really knowing what exactly was going to lead me towards. It led me towards finance, towards banking, and just starting out doing some different things in that world. And an opportunity came up to jump into and learn mortgage, and that was 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back. And the reason why you get into and you start dealing with different types of borrowers, different types of people, and all walks in the world, and it's very rewarding when you get to help them make the biggest purchase of their life, at least up to that point, probably until they buy their next house. It's very rewarding, and you get to the closing table and you get smiles and handshakes and the glow on people's faces and you guys get to see the same thing, right? It's extremely rewarding. So it makes, I haven't had a hard time in the last 15 years getting up to go to work every day because of that reward.
That's cool. So you're with Frandsen Bank Trust, and they're not necessarily new to the area, but they're newer to the Duluth location. They opened that a couple years ago. I guess tell us a little bit more about Frandsen Bank and why, some of the things that separate Frandsen compared to maybe some of the other lending, options out there.
Yeah, and so in my 15 years, I've worked with the full gauntlet of lenders, banking with big bank, small bank, credit union, correspondent kind of lender. And the difference with Frandsen Bank, we're definitely invested into our communities, and we're located primarily in smaller communities because of the different things that we can and are willing to do. So some lenders are really just very vanilla, cut and dry, conventional loan type stuff. We get into all kinds of different type of lending: lease land, seasonal properties, construction, land loans, all these different things to get people to invest in.
So we ask every single one of our guests on our show a different wildcard question. And so our wildcard question for Corey today is there a book out there that you've read that's impacted you in your business, personal life, that you'd like to share with us, and kind of how that book impacted you?
Yeah, so I'm very sports oriented. So I grew up that way. Played everything I could. Played baseball in college, and there was a point in my life where, and it's, you know, you're confusing teenage years, right? And I'm there with my 15-year-old son right now, and I read a book when I was on my way. We just won a baseball state tournament down in the cities, and we were headed to Madison, Wisconsin to go to a regional tournament then, and it was about a 6-hour drive, and I had Kirby Pucket's book from back then called I Love This Game, and it was a book that, you know, when I read it at that point in my life, because again, at 14 years old, there's some confusing times there, lots of confidence, but yet clueless on a lot of things. To read his background and some of the adversities that he had and some of the things he overcame, and I didn't grow up in the south side of Chicago by any means, but there was a lot of parallels that I felt, and I could relate to a lot of what he was all about and how he got to be a first-round pick with the Minnesota Twins, you know, fighting through, you know, where he grew up in Chicago and playing on sandlot fields, and just some of the things that to get to and to be successful in life, and not only in sports, that you have to kind of work through and fight through, and not everything, you know, there's lots of challenges in life. That it just hit home when I was 14 years old. So anybody who knows me knows that baseball is a passion. I'm still involved to this day with a large, you know, youth organizations and things like that. It was very motivating for me then, and it's still, I reread the book probably every few years, and it still hits home, and it's, you know, obviously a very iconic figure in Minnesota. Definitely. And you know, so that was very, very moving for me at 14.
That's great. Well, Corey, thank you so much for being here today. If someone wants to get a hold of you and talk with you about lending opportunities, what's the best way for them to contact you, would you say?
You know, a few different ways these days. Obviously, you can always call me at my branch location in downtown Duluth, 218-673-5027. Also, email is always a easy way. As mortgage lenders, sometimes we're 7-day a week, people, especially in the busier seasons, and that's okay. And also, I put out information on my Facebook account and LinkedIn account. If anybody's, you know, kind of cruising through there, and it's my personal Facebook account, interest rates, different tidbits in the mortgage industry, things that we you know, want to educate anybody who's kind of in the market and pays attention to all of that. So Facebook is always a prime way to get my information as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey, so much for being here today. We want to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Everything Twin Ports. We're going to link Corey's contact information with him and Frandsen Bank Trust in the actual show notes, so check it out. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, share it, comment, and if you guys, have any information that you want to learn more about Frandsen Bank Trust, give Corey a call. Thanks again for joining us today.